Hello and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers.
I just wanted to give you a quick heads up that there are a few spots throughout this episode where there are some minor audio glitches. We apologize for the quality of this, but most of the episode is fine. So thank you for your patience and understanding. Enjoy the show.
Hello, empaths. Have you been feeling a little uninspired lately? Do you maybe worry that you're not sharing your bright, unique, beautiful gifts with others the way you feel you should? Are doubts and fears and a lack of trust holding you back? Then today's show is for you. Joining us to help you learn how to embrace your fullest potential is Tama Kieves. Before we bring her on, let me tell you a little bit about her impressive background. After graduating with honors from Harvard Law School, she left her law practice to write and help others live and breathe their most meaningful self-expression. She's the best-selling author of 5 books, including her newest, called Learning to Trust Yourself, Breaking Through the Blocks That Hold You Back. She's been featured in USA Today, Oprah, TEDx, and so much more. She's a sought-after speaker and visionary career success coach who's helped thousands worldwide to discover and thrive in their life, calling, and work of their dreams. She's also taught A Course in Miracles for years and is known for her smart, spitfire spirituality, electric humor, and the big possibilities she brings out in others. And she serves on the faculty of premier holistic learning venues like the Omega Institute, Kripalu Center, Esalen, and more. Thank you so much for coming on to join us today.
I am so honored to be here and share with my family of sensitives.
Yes. Well, you have to start us off by telling everyone how you left Harvard Law School, a flourishing law practice, and said, you know what, I'm going to put all that education and all that money behind me and go after my dream of writing.
Yeah. Well, I think like a lot of people, I knew when I was young, sort of what I wanted to be. Like I had a dream of what I wanted to be. I loved writing. That was my dream. I wanted to be a writer. And I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and my family is Orthodox Jewish. And so if you said you wanted to be a writer, it wasn't like, oh, Mazel Tov, yay. It was like, you're going to write, you're going to starve. That was the basic, the lesson. And so, that they really strongly encouraged me, be reasonable, be practical. So I went to law school and I went to Harvard Law School and graduated with honors. And I was on partnership track in a major law firm. And I was so unhappy because when you're not living your soul's calling, when you're not living your true instincts, your dreams, your connection, your light, what you're meant to be, you start feeling empty. You start feeling like, wow, what am I doing here? Is this right? Do I even belong here? And so I really started getting depressed. And thank God a friend of mine at the time said, think about it. If you've been this successful doing something you don't even love, what could you do with what you love? Bam, right? And that
What a great question.
Isn't that a great question? It's actually the question in my first book, This Time I Dance. So I decided you get one life. I wanted to know what would happen if I finally started listening to my own inner voice. And the thing I learned, and so much of what I teach nowadays, is I wanted to learn how to listen to my inner voice, but it was my inner voice of love, not my inner voice of fear. Because I've been listening to an inner voice, all right. It just wasn't the right one. So that's what began.
Sometimes it's the loudest one.
It is the loudest one. Yes. So that began the whole journey. And that's why for me, following this brilliance within and this original destiny and plan and trusting yourself is so important. It's changed my entire life.
I love the title of your book, because people don't trust themselves, or they'll give away their trust, or they'll give away their sense of self to someone else, especially maybe family of origin or how they were taught or indoctrinated, whatever it might be. So do you see a consistency with certain blocks that show up for people, as far as, is there any prescription to it? I know that's an odd way to describe it, but It seems like people are, it's fear, it's insecurity. I won't be successful, security and
You nailed it.
stability.
Yep. Yep. Yes. Exactly. And again, going back to what you were just saying, which is great, is that I think many of us, like me, we learn to listen to other people, right? We learn to follow a prescription or a formula. I was trained get the A, whatever, get an A. Some people are trained, get a husband and 2.5 children. Whatever the prescription is of what success is, we learn to follow what we're told, and we don't know how to listen. It never even occurred to me to ask what I might want, right? And again, because we live in such a culture that the convention is just constantly, you're bombarded with messages of this is what success looks like. If you were more successful, you'd be making more money. If you were more successful, you'd be in Bali like the influencers. If you were more successful, like we have all these things that we don't even know what our own original desires are. And so to your point, I help so many people at the, in my work, find their calling, their dreams, live them. And exactly what you said, there are specific blocks that come up, right? And so when I wrote Learning to Trust Yourself, I wanted to I wanted to look at undoing all the blocks that hold you back from your genius. Like all the blocks. Like I wanted to take the most popular ones. And so I didn't have to look far because I just looked at, okay, what blocks me? I know these blocks. I know them intimately. What screws me up all the time? And one of them was listening to self-criticism instead of self-love. Another one was listening to self-comparison instead of self-appreciation. And there was, listening to self-doubt instead of self-trust. And so there's 7 different blocks that I cover in the book, that really help you undo that. Because I found that even in my work as a coach, I found that people don't need answers. They think they need answers and they think they need next steps. But my work is to help free you from whatever is clouding you already have an answer, right? There's a block that's in the way of it, like you said, a thought or an idea. But I've never yet worked with somebody who didn't have a next step, a next answer, a next clarity when they're free, and I'm infinitely fascinated by the maverick genius in all of us. It's incredible, especially those of us who are sensitive, those of us who really can feel into things. We have a different language. And, and we may have grown up thinking, well, the metrics of success look this way and you need to be that way, right? And my biggest mission is to give legitimacy to that language within us or to our spirituality or to our creativity, because there's another way to walk this world, and it's amazing.
Yeah, that's so true. I don't know if you guys missed this. It was a very important news story. I'm kidding. But I saw this last week when I was scrolling a little video clip of Justin Bieber saying that he has imposter syndrome and that
Wow.
he often doesn't trust himself or feel that he's a great singer. And I was looking at that and thinking, wow, you see that a lot with quote unquote famous, successful, talented people where they say, yeah, I really don't think I can act. I think I'm a crap painter, singer, what have you.
Mm,
And it's almost weirdly comforting, to know that we're not the only ones that have imposter syndrome. But
yes.
is lack of trust connected to that?
Absolutely. That is such a great connection. That's brilliant, it's absolutely that. And I guess the first thing I would say is there is a part of us that doubts, and there is a part of us that feels like an imposter, and there is a part of us that thinks, who am I, or whatever. There is a part of you that does not. There is a part of you that absolutely does not. And what I found in my own work, when I'm thinking about my work or I'm comparing myself to somebody else, then I start feeling like an imposter, like, oh my God, who am I? I'm just blah, 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 right? Of when I'm actually doing my work, when I'm in service of my work, when I'm coaching someone, when I'm speaking, when I'm writing, when I am giving my gift, there is not a doubt in my mind. So it's almost like what I would tell people is you are doubting yourself because you're not doing it. But when you're in the moment of doing it, when you're singing your note, right? Something else is coming through you. And so like I remember when I first started coaching, the very first time I started coaching, and I remember thinking, who am I to do this? Like, what if they're way more together than I am? What if I have a client who's like infinitely more successful than I am and smart? It is very, very possible, right? And then my mother didn't help because my mother would always say stuff. Do they know your life? You're going to coach? They know your life? And so it's like, oh my God. And what I finally have had to tell myself over the years, nobody's paying for Tama from Brooklyn who, dated some psycho boyfriends. And, I mean, like they're not paying for that. What they are paying for is the light in Tama. They are paying for the light in Tama. And I am dedicated to that life forevermore. And I serve that light, and that light comes through me. And that's what so again, to your point about imposter syndrome, maybe we don't trust our smaller selves. But maybe we can trust that larger self, that genius, that love, that spirit that wants to come through us in our own unique ways. And I think sadly, when we're comparing ourselves or having metrics or ideas of what traditional success looks like, we really invade the possibilities, right? We really negate what we are doing, right? And we don't even know what this plan is. We don't even know what's possible. My success has happened in so many crazy, dumb, unbelievable ways that I would never have anticipated. And had I done it the conventional, normal, what you're supposed to do way, it never would have worked for me. Right. So a lot of times we're comparing ourselves to, yeah, but this person has that and this person does this and they have these numbers and that numbers, especially like in our industry, everybody's about the numbers, right? I'm about the heat. I'm about the energy, right? It's like I'm about the love, right? So again, I think when we are trusting in our smaller selves, of course, Miracles would say, and it's a spiritual program. It's not mine, but I've taught it for 30 years. Of And the Course in Miracles would say, when you're trusting in your smaller self, you have every reason to doubt. You have every reason to feel depressed. You have every reason to feel anxious. But when you're trusting in your larger self, you know something else.
I love that answer.
Figure if I
People.
talk long enough, there will be an answer. If I just shoot, I'll hit something.
Do you find that when you help people work through the blocks and
Yes.
identify what their blocks are, obviously there's going to be a sense of almost giving people permission to realize that they have more that they can go
Yes.
after. But it's
Yes.
also empowering. Like Samantha and I have talked about this a lot, is to help people reconnect with their own inner knowing and light. And it feels like your work is the same thing.
Absolutely.
So
100%.
once people get okay, these are my blocks, I'm going to work on those. Now I feel more like myself. Is the next step to deflect the comparison, to deflect from the people, the naysayers, the people who are saying musicians don't make any money, writers never
Hmm.
get published.
Hmm.
There are a dozen, so is there a continuity with that?
Yeah, there is. The way that I work, I don't have as much of a systematic approach.
Mhm.
Um, God forbid, God forbid I could have something that would be systematic, but I tend to work so much with each individual, right? And I tend
Mhm.
to work so much with I believe in the inspired journey. And so like even in all of my classes, I'll teach different principles, but then we apply it very specifically to each because what's blocking one person really might not be the same as others. And then other people are thinking, I need to take steps and I need to be moving forward, right? And that really might not be the healing. That really might not be the next step. The next step might really be forgiving yourself, right, for a mistake you made, or it might be allowing yourself to dream bigger. Like so often, especially as a coach, people will come to me and say, okay, here's my goal, and I want to do this. And my first rule of thumb is never listen to the client. I mean, because, and I listen acutely to people, right? but I'm not going to take it at face value. I'm going to test it a little bit. I'm going to poke. I'm going to see if, because sometimes we're settling for smaller dreams than what we really want. And that's what I wanted to do in learning to trust yourself. I wanted to, in the book, I wanted to give people almost like me, the mentor, right? Like not everybody's going to hire me as a coach, right? And so I wanted to give them the best of everything that I've worked with for decades with people, of to take them on their own private revolution and journey to really listening, like you said, to listening to that original inner voice, because nobody knows the secrets you hold. Nobody knows what's inside each of us. And we're all listening to the experts, and especially nowadays, and information and information. I always tell my clients, I don't care about information. I care about wisdom. I don't care about information. I don't care about statistics. I care about what's in you, because what I've seen and in my own life, my creative instincts have made some statistics. My creative instincts have gone past everything everybody ever told me. I've done it, completely by listening to this inner voice. I've been scared out of my mind. It's not like I've had infinite faith all along. It's like I've had faith for 3 seconds and then I've been scared. And I've had faith for 4 seconds and then I've been scared. And that's why I'm such a biggie on trusting yourself, because each of us has a way. Each of us has, especially in this crazy world we're living in right now, where there's so much disruptive change. I want people to find that consistency and that love that's in them, that's only in them. So.
Tell us like what of your personal favorite success stories with someone you've worked with. Like, did you have someone who was just really resistant or had no clue where to go and then ended up taking your tools and
Oh yeah, I mean that happens all the time, and of course I'm blanking on it now, like of, but most of it, I'll be honest with you, most of it, like most of us want the success story where it's like, oh my God, this person was so depressed and blocked and whatever, and now she's making $1 billion and doing blah blah blah. That's like the media story, right? And I actually have some of those stories. Um, but really, I think more often the stories I have are of people who just fell in love with themselves and fell in love with their lives. Like sometimes people realize the life they were in was great and they didn't see it, right? They were so hungry to do this or hungry to do that. And sometimes the shift was, the other way. Years ago, I worked with a biologist who opened this incredible dance studio and started having, like so complete change, right? Of, just there's so many stories like that. And I teach a lot from my own stories as well, because, for me, going from being trained as a Harvard lawyer to I'm a spiritual teacher. I teach a course in miracles, and uh, I, you know, I'm teaching people to listen to that which you cannot see, but what will come through you is such a huge change. And I tend to love to work with people who do want to achieve and do want to really thrive in this world and be, like I always say, be in this world fully, but not of it, not limited by it, right? So, um, great question. Thank you.
What I love in your book and in everything that you're saying is it doesn't come from a place of ego of I'll help you be here, I'll help you be
Yes.
seen. It's more, I'll help you find that place in you that feels authentic and true so that
Yes.
you can do, I really believe we each have an energetic thumbprint that's unique. There's 8 billion plus of us,
Mm,
but there's something unique about each one of us. And I feel
yes.
like your work is helping people realign with who they really came here to be and to give
Yes.
themselves permission to do so.
Yes, exactly that. And the way that I tend to teach, and so much of the book is this way, but in all my classes it's this way, is I do teach a lot from my own personal stories, because I think we have a lot of teachers that are, I've made it now and I'm blah, blah, blah. And here's my 5 easy steps. And if you buy my program, you'll learn the 7 reasons, because that, all that. And I would read all those self-help books and I'd be frustrated. I'd be like, oh, great. Now I'm failing self-help. This is great because I'm reading all these self-help books and I am still just as much stuck as I was before I got the book, right? And so all my books, and particularly Learning to Trust Yourself, I wanted to tell the real stories from my own life, right? Of just being really stuck or scared or lost or frightened, right? And then shifting that. For me, it was such a quintessential journey of I have this faith and I have this trust, and I'm terrified. What if I'm an idiot? What if I'm crazy? What if I'm spending my money on something? What if I'm, whatever. Anyways, I finally self-published it. I got a lot of wonderful things started happening locally here in Denver, where I live. But 4 months after I self-published it, I got an email out of the blue that said, your fairy godmother has arrived. Your fairy godmother has arrived, right? And and at first I thought it was going to be spam. It was going to be Russian girls are waiting for you. But, but it was from a vice president of marketing and publicity for Random House. She had been going through some career transition meltdown of her own, been on Amazon, somehow found my self-published book and wrote to me and said, this is the best book I've ever read on finding your calling, doing your dreams. I want to help you get it to a major New York house. She got it to the publisher I'd always, always dreamed of. It was Tarcher, part of Penguin Random House. They bought the book exactly the way that it was. They didn't change the writing. They didn't change the title. They kept purple ink in it because I like purple. I always tell my clients, you can't plan an inspired life. You can't plan an inspired life. I could never have planned that I was going to have a meltdown for 12 years writing this thing, right? And so that's
That's
what
a
I mean.
beautiful story. That
Isn't that
gives me
incredible?
chills.
It's
Yeah.
it's for me it's been the story I tell at every one of my talks, just because I have to have lived these stories personally for me to teach them. I have to know them inside out. And the other reason I always want to tell that story is because people hear the 12 years part. And what I want them to know is that I always tell people, I think it took me 11 years to heal, 11 years to believe in myself, 11 years to trust that there was a loving universe, 11 years to whatever, and 1 year to write a book. And the reason I say that is so many of us on the spiritual path, we are doing things on so many levels, in so many ways. It's not a linear path. So when people say, why is this taking me so long? Or am I ever going to get there? It's like, we are changing our consciousness. We are changing our destiny. We are healing inside and out. We will be healers for others, right? That's a whole different path. If I hadn't stayed with that inner voice, I would never have gotten that book published. They, by the way, picked up every single other book I've ever done, and that publisher now went over to St. Martin's and took me with them there. Of, and so, and I, thank God, have gotten to work and heal thousands and thousands of people because of these books, right? And so my following my one inner voice has changed so much. I want to see, I loved your, Denise, I loved your thing of the unique thumbprint, the energetic thumbprint we all have. What if we were all following that? What if we were all following that through thick and thin?
What's really cool though is you didn't write to get published. You wrote because it was in your soul to write. And
Yes.
it was never with the goal of, I'm going to be a bestseller. I'm going to be on the New York Times bestseller. It was more, I physically, mentally, spiritually need to get these words out and prove to myself that I'm a writer.
It
And
was a little bit of both. I will, I mean, like I have a big, fat, healthy ego. I'd be lying
yeah,
if I didn't say that, but my healing has been in all my writing. What you said, for me, the real reason I write my books to this day, the reason I wrote Learning to Trust Yourself, I'm writing to heal me. I'm writing to heal me. If it heals someone else, I'm really grateful, and it has, thank God. But I'm really writing. I write because that's my language. It explains life to me. So to your point, that has to be first and foremost. There's always these secret desires, like, oh, maybe I'll get published, and maybe
yeah.
this, maybe that, right?
Mhm.
And everybody who's in the creative arts or any kind of entrepreneur, right? You have to manage those two, right? Because I need to eat, right? Like, because I used to threaten myself, if you don't write, then you have to go back to get a job and practice law or something. It's like, oh my God, I'll write. And so, um, but my own healing, because I'm trained and I'm wired to be ambitious because that's what I learned. My own healing is learning to come from love instead of fear, is really coming from, you know what, that ambition's lovely, it's wonderful, but sometimes it's off track, you know, and that really love, like what you just said, like, and I kept coming back to, if there's a reason I have this, there's got to be a way, and I'm just going to follow it all the way, because following it also healed me. Because even if I hadn't ever gotten that book published, which would be disappointing, or any of my books published, right? It would be disappointing, but at least I did not stop myself. At least I said, I'm going to show up at every turn for myself. I don't know what happens in this life, but I'm going to show up for myself. And that's what I want other people doing.
Yeah, that's so important for everyone to hear. The Course in Miracles it changed my life too, but in very slowly. I had a really hard time reading it and ingesting it. Now I have to read it, several times a week. And I learn something new. Can you just talk to people about how that book changed your life and helped?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as you may know from reading Learning to Trust Yourself, excuse me, I include a lot of the concepts from A Course in Miracles in it. Like one of my goals in life is to make it accessible, to make it really practical, usable, breathable, because it's amazing. That book freaked me out. Like I think it should freak you out. In fact, I'll tell you my backstory of it. It's ridiculous, but when I left law, I was really scared out of my mind, and like, oh my God, I was really scared about security and what am I doing and whatever. And I had a boyfriend at the time that gave me A Course in Miracles to read, and my open-mindedness to the spiritual life was, get that crap away from me. That was my first response. I just wouldn't even look at it. And so what he was really smart, and he started teaching me some of the concepts from it without telling me what it was from. So I'd be like, "Oh my God, that's incredible." And he'd be like, "Well, it's in that blue book you won't look at." And so I told him, "You know what? I'm going to read that damn book, and I'm going to read it line by line. I'm going to read it like a Harvard lawyer, baby. And I'm going to show you how ridiculous it is. And then you will never talk to me about it again." And he's like, "Deal." I've been reading it ever since. And so I now teach courses on it online. In fact, I have a brand new one starting called Opening to Your New Direction with A Course in Miracles. And I always teach it in like little 8-week segments where it's just the most important lessons, the most important concepts. Because A Course in Miracles, I'll just give a little briefy thing in case people don't know. A Course in Miracles is this amazing mindset training, right? I keep saying living in love instead of fear, right? And it's like, what does that actually mean? Because, and so A Course in Miracles really talks about fear being anything that's blocking your well-being. So it doesn't literally mean terror or anxiety. It could be those things, but it could be anger, it could be judgment, it could be frustration, right? And so it teaches us to undo these blocks, these thought patterns, to again, the Course in Miracles will say it's here to help you undo the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. Meaning that unbelievable love is with you at all times. This unbelievable, miraculous intelligence is with you at all times, but you may not be listening to it. And as lovely as that sounds, and it is lovely, the actual practice of it, like the reason I love teaching, I like being experiential, right? Like I like not so much the concepts, but I really like helping people. Let's apply that in our lives. Let's play with that this, like, and so I always call on people in my classes to really like work through, because you can hear it differently about, it teaches us to up level our thoughts, up level our frequency, up level the choices we make. It's made me a completely different person because I've learned from the culture, right? Be competitive, get ahead, measure yourself, the world tells you this is the way, then this must be the way, right? And A Course in Miracles really has freed me. It's really always about loving. It's about questioning the judgments we have, questioning the opinions we have, meaning we are not struggling with our lives. We are not struggling with the reality of our lives. We are struggling with a thought about our lives, an interpretation about our lives. And if you don't mind, I can actually tell you a quick story that's in Learning to Trust Yourself that is teaches this point because now that I'm babbling, I thought, oh, that'd be a good story.
Please do.
So, so when I work with people, I'm always telling them that basically that again, you're not struggling with something that's going on in your life. You're struggling with what the story of what's going on in your life, right? And the way that the mind works is that you have a belief about something, and then you will find the evidence of it. You will always be right. It's amazing. You will always be right. Like you will have a belief that men will always cheat you, and then you'll find the men who cheat you, right? You'll believe I'm not good with money, and then you'll start noticing, oh God, my electric bill went up, right? Like the mind will literally find what you tell it to find, the beliefs you hold. So I started looking in my own life at that because I thought I tell the story in Learning to Trust Yourself, where I realized, how could I say I believe in a loving universe and still have crappy thoughts about myself? How could I say I live in this loving, loving universe that life is meant to work in my favor, but I still have these limiting ideas about myself? And so I started looking at one of the beliefs I had, which was always, I never get what I want. I never get what I want. And it would always unconsciously come up, like something would cancel. Oh, see, I never get what I want. Or, a product I liked was discontinued. Oh, see, I never get what I want. And I started realizing how ridiculous it was to say, I never get what I want. It's ridiculous, right? But I really felt that all the time. And so, and then I started looking at how could you say that? You got a book published, you wanted that. You got, you lived the life you wanted, right? So I started looking at where the heck did this story come from? And I remembered a time when I was a little girl and I was walking in a department store with my mother and I saw these red shoes I wanted. I fell in love with these red shoes, and it was just my little girl heart went, "Wow, I want these!" And I was waiting for my mother to say, my mother was very practical, and I was waiting for her to say, "That's ridiculous. You don't need the red shoes. Look, the green elf shoes, they're on sale. You'll get those." I was waiting for that, but she got me the red shoes that day. It was amazing. I got what I wanted, right? And I was so excited and I was so thrilled. And then she lost the shopping bag that the shoes were in. So like we got them and she lost the shopping bag. So I didn't get the red shoes. And it broke my heart. It just, and I think as a little girl, I probably formed the belief out of protection that said, I'll never get what I want. I'll never get what I want, right? Like a protection. I don't ever want to be disappointed again. I don't ever want to, open my heart to wanting things again, which is a very dangerous belief. It's something I work on a lot with people because a lot of times we shut down to protect ourselves. But like, oh my God, I want you to open up and trust again. That belief was even more damaging than losing the shoes. The amazing, amazing part of that story. Well, first of all, I healed that belief, but the amazing part of that story was years later, I was talking to my mother about it. And she's like, what are you even talking about? And I'm like, the red shoes. And she's like, you got those red shoes. And I'm like, yeah, I know we got them, but then you lost the shopping bag. And she's like, yeah. And then we called the department store. They found it. We went back and you got those red shoes. And I
Wow.
did not remember that at all. I have no memory of that at all. I remembered my belief more than I remembered the truth. And you know what? All of us are walking around uh, living in our beliefs about reality rather than the truth of reality. And so I just think that's such a powerful example of it. And so, of course, miracles will always teach us you're seeing your beliefs 24/7. And if we start changing those beliefs, we're going to see a completely different reality. And the main point I wanted people to get in learning to trust yourself, if nothing else, the main thing I wanted them to get, because it was a main revelation for me, was that the reason I wasn't feeling spirit, the reason I wasn't feeling that love of spirit or the universe, when people say, but I don't even hear an inner voice, or I'm not even sure this is real, I realized it wasn't because I was doing it wrong or I wasn't using the right technique. It wasn't that. It was anytime I was judging myself or anytime I was being critical of myself, I could no longer hear the universe. When I was in fear and I was having a negative relationship with myself, it's like I stopped the floodgates. And so the main thing I wanted people to get from learning to trust yourself was if you change the relationship with yourself, you start to learn how to love the hell out of yourself and your exact life right now. That's when the universe starts speaking like crazy. That's when things start to change like crazy. That was such a revelation for me because I'd been trying the right techniques and all of that, but it all came down to my relationship with myself and my life.
I love that story.
And another thread through all of this, Tama, is that there's no timeline on this. It doesn't matter if you're 15 or 75, you can still apply these techniques and have a higher quality of life and a better sense of self. Do you find that once people work through learning to trust themselves, and a lot of our listening audience may have issues with trust based on family of origin or being a
Yes.
highly sensitive person that wasn't recognized or
Yes.
being an empath and having that used against them in some way or codependence, fill in the
Mm-hmm.
blank.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that once people start to feel that connection with themselves, that they're able to step more easily and more fully into the calling that they
Yes.
came for?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Because so much of the calling we came for is an identity, even more than a task or an assignment, it's an identity, right? And so when you feel it, when you're more connected with yourself, you can absolutely feel that. And to your point, which is a great point, so many times people use age as a reason, right? And it's fascinating to me because, people will say, well, I'm too old because da 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 da. Then people will say, well, I'm too young. And then I'll think, what the hell is the appropriate age? Like, at what age is it okay? It's fascinating. And what I would say to all of us is, I don't care if you're 90. I literally have people in my classes who are in their 80s, and I do have young people. I mean, I have the scope, right? And what I will say is that there is no age limit to your spirit, to the universe, right? It's like when you connected, it's alive. It's like maybe I think I can't, but it can, right? Uh, and so again, when we are again thinking in terms of metrics and age and circle, I don't have the right education, I don't live in the right geographics, I don't have the right husband or any husband, I don't or wife, or I don't have, what you're supposed to have. The second I'm doing that, I'm kind of forgetting that everything shifts in an instant. This doesn't take time. One one of
You're
the
also
things,
making excuses to not have to step into your power in your life.
yeah.
And I don't mean that in a mean way, but if you
Yes.
can keep yourself, I can't do that. Then you never have to raise the bar for yourself and really look in the mirror and say, okay, I can do this.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
And
that's
and
big.
it's huge, right? Because and then you can blame things, right? You can say,
Right.
well, I could have been and I would have been, right? But it's like that's so much less of a fun position, right? And it's so much less of a fun stance to take in life, right? Of course, Miracles says that everything will shift in an instant, in just one instant. But then it says readiness might take some time. you know and so, but I love what you said, Denise, about how sometimes we have these old stories of my family didn't get me, right, and they didn't see my gifts, so now I don't see my gifts, or maybe I misused my gifts, or maybe I didn't understand, I didn't use them enough, or whatever. And so a lot of what I cover in learning to trust yourself is forgiving ourselves, right? Like we're telling ourselves we made a mistake, or we should have been this, or we could have been that. And again, to your point, it's that it's an excuse, or it's a getting stuck in an identity that doesn't serve us. And what I will always say to people is, are you the mistake, or are you the learning you got from the mistake? Right? Are you the mistake, or are you the learning you got from the mistake? Use it. There are no mistakes. There are learnings. They're learning to trust yourself.
I love how you really promote reframing things like mistakes,
Hmm.
like identity. On your website, you have this quote I just loved. You said, many of us are bridge people. We are left-brained and right-brained. We are analytical and creative. We are sensitive and grounded. And sometimes we have felt like misfits, but really, we are mavericks stepping into new territories. And I love that because if you just shift the way you label yourself or think about yourself. Not a misfit, but a maverick, not independent, but unique and innovative. Just switching from I'm not on the outside looking in, I'm here to create a new direction. I think that's
Mm,
really empowering for so many people. And that's something that I think all of your books speak to, that it's really, really important for people to hear. How we label our own selves
yes.
is critical for
Yes.
learning to trust ourselves and invite the fairy godmother into our own lives.
It really is, and we're not taught that, and that is my passion is I am fascinated with creative people and people who are different, and we speak a different inner language, and we have different sensibilities that may not yet have been recognized by the culture we're in. So we were ignored, or we felt like we didn't fit in, right? And I always tell people, maybe you're not here to fit in. Maybe that's not your job to fit in. Maybe you're here to lead. Maybe if you don't feel like you fit in, it's because you're meant to lead. It took me years to realize that. I kept looking for, where are my people? Who's going to get me? Where are they? And when I started writing books, and I have now created, thank you God, a global family of those of us who are living in inspiration instead of fear. So I'm, always going to encourage people to join me on social media and on my website, and check us out. Of but it's so important to start recognizing your own validity, and like you said, you're shifting that sense of identity. And I always tell people also that I don't necessarily believe that we're here to make it in the world. I believe we're here to remake the world. We're mere, and it is the sensitives among us, and the creatives, and the innovators, and the ones who think differently. We are always the ones who push the culture forward. We are always the people who don't fit in are the people who always push the culture forward, because we are aware of something else, and it takes guts and courage to say, I'm going to stay with my knowing, even if the culture isn't reflecting that yet, right? But I'm going to stay with my knowing, and I'm going to create a safe place for it. And in my doing that, I then attracted people to me, thank God, who believe like I believe, and it's growing, and the culture is moving in that direction, right? And so, and even if it wasn't, what I have always told myself is, I get this one lifetime. Who knows, right? Who knows anything? The story I tell myself is the story I live. And, like, especially I'll go back to writing that book for 12 years. I'm alone writing. Nobody's banging on my door saying, woohoo, we can't wait to hear from you. That's not happening. I'm getting rejection slips. Every time I submit, whatever. And so the story you tell yourself about who you are, because I certainly had the story going on in my head of, you're a loser. What's wrong with you? Why couldn't you have stayed in law like normal people? Blah, 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 you know. And then I finally told myself, whether I get this book published or not, this is my success. I'm showing up right now. On this Wednesday, I am on my path, and I am showing up on my path, and that's my success. And I will show up every damn day for myself if that's what it takes, and for anybody else who believes this way. So I think for all of us, it's like really independently changing that inner story, because we're the ones who change it first, and then people see us. And there's brilliance to that too, because I needed to do that. I needed to grow that way. I was way too addicted to what other people think, way too addicted.
You also have empowered other people to realize they can do it too, or to, for all those people in your lineage that this is what we do, this is how we do it. And now the ancestors are looking and saying, oh my goodness, she did it. She broke the cycle for
Wow.
us. And now,
Oh,
it's moving forward. But a visual I get a lot when I'm doing readings is I'll see 100 people lined up, and I'll see someone standing over here. And
oh,
and I'll always say, you're the one, you came here to create, to change it.
mm,
You see it from a different perspective. And I think that's a huge part of in this community that we've built is we might be wired a little different, but we have a commonality amongst ourselves that when we add that together, it's brilliant. It's absolutely
exactly.
brilliant.
We're the ones. We are the ones. And I got chills when you said that, because years ago, I was flying to a speaking engagement and I was really scared. I was like really scared, like, can I do this? And what if I'm an imposter? What if I freak out on stage? Like I was just like, I was going through this, and in the Denver airport, in one of the concourses, they have this like moving sidewalk that you stand on, but they have like all these voices, like subtly like these Indian chants, right? Like, so you're
Oh,
walking through and it's this cavern and there's like these Indian chants going. And I literally had that same feeling in that moment. I just felt like everybody was on my side saying, "You're the one. Go, keep going, honey. Take it further. You're the one. We gave our lives. We pushed it as far as we could so that you would do this." So exactly that. And it just kept me going because I just thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for my people. So, I mean, you guys are doing it for your people every time you show up and do a podcast, I know that's not easy. I know behind the scenes, there's a lot of work and all of that. And every time you do that, you're supporting this community, and this community is affecting, the ripples are amazing that we don't even know, the collective ripples.
But it's so important to not give up and to not, say, well, this is it. I read this article a couple years ago. It really depressed me. It said it said 47 is the most depressing age statistically,
Wow.
because that's the
really?
age where people go, well, this is it. I'm not going to be the rock star. I'm not going to, be this. I'm not going to do that. But then the article said that the 60s were your happiest decade because
Wow.
by then you've made peace with all of that,
Yes.
and you're like, well, this life I have is pretty good. And the article just made me sad because I thought, this is this one precious life,
Yes.
and why wait to 47 to go, this is it, and then why wait to 60 to be happy about it? The
Yes.
whole thing made me sad. And I was thinking about all the people I've come across in my life who don't really seem to, it is almost as though they have given up.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I bumped into, not a friend, it was an old neighbor. We were at a doctor's office waiting to see the doctor, and she was like pacing and freaking out. And I was like, okay, what's wrong? And she said, I'm going to miss Price is Right. And if I miss Price is Right, and she went through her whole like
Oh
TV
my
schedule
God.
for the day.
Oh
And I
my
was like, "Are
God.
you working?" And she was like, "Oh no, honey, I gave up on work years ago." And I was like, "Wow, so your whole life is just sitting at home watching
Wow.
TV." And I don't know. So I would rather feel like a misfit or an
Yes.
imposter
Yes.
than to be in that stage where I'm like, "Well, I'm just gonna give up and watch The Price is Right."
Oh God. That's such a great story. That's such a cautionary tale for each of
Yeah.
us, right? Either you face your calling or your Price is Right is your destiny.
But you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather chase a dream and have a
Yes.
passion
Hell yes.
and risk never achieving it than just
Yes.
give up and sit at home and watch
And
The
I'd
Price is Right.
rather, and I'd rather remind people you're achieving it every freaking second that you're on the path. This is the success. People, we live in a culture where just because, oh, when I got the book published, that's the success. You mean to tell me all those hours alone when I was writing and believing and trusting and creating and whatever, that's not success? Right? But we always tell ourselves that success is only the finish line. I've become such a better person on this path. I'm a happier person. And most of us aren't seeing the success we have, the love we have. And that's why for me it was so healing when I was writing Learning to Trust Yourself, to turn around and to start blessing my own life, this life right now as I'm going. Like I always say, you know, chase your dreams for everything you're worth, but not from a sense of lack in your life. Like be full in this life, love this life, appreciate this life, and expand it. Right. So it's both and, because I knew how to chase it from lack. Now I'm doing it from abundance. And whoa, it's much funner.
Yeah.
And it's also a beautiful beautiful message to be in the process of it, be in the moment, you're not, people would say, oh, she's an overnight success. No, you've been working for 20 or 30 years to get to this place, but you've been living the whole time.
The
You've
whole
been
time.
growing, you've been evolving. You haven't, and I think that that's a often a message with social media or is that it's instantaneous and that you
Yes.
don't, and it's not because you're giving so much to your client base, to your audience, to your community because of
Mhm.
all those years of what you went through.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, exactly. I mean, I think the strength of my teaching is I have walked this path every single step of the way. And there's hardly any fear that somebody can say that I can say, oh, I know that one. Yeah, no, I have that one too. Like it's just like, and I used to always judge myself, like, what is wrong with you? Why do you have to have so many fears? But it's actually made me a strong teacher, right? And a believable
Exactly.
teacher. Because if it had all just happened instantaneously for me, it's like, oh, I don't know why it didn't happen for you, right? But it's like, I really want to keep people going in the service of their good. And one thing that I think is also amazing, yes, bigger success, whatever we think of that, is really fun. Yes, it is. But you know what? I've come to realize how fun all of it was, and I wasn't appreciating it. Like when you're hurting and it's not working out, and that one check comes through that you didn't expect, or that you meet the person who encourages you, like the magic is going on at all times. And I think those years are just as fun if we pay attention, sometimes more fun, sometimes more meaningful. Like you start getting like, oh, well, yeah, of course my class filled, and you don't have the appreciation that you might have, right? Of, and so I'm really always trying to remind myself to go back to that love and to serve that higher voice in us, that higher intelligence within us. That's really what this is about, that each of us has so much more power than we know. And we're just
So true.
limiting it by the stories we're telling.
And that radiates throughout your book. It's very well written and it speaks to your heart. So thank
Mm.
you. It's beautiful work.
Thank you. Thank you.
It
Thank you.
really
Lovely.
is. Tell us about the free gift you have for listeners.
Oh, I'd love to do that because, so many people will ask me, yeah, but how do I do this? How do I change the voice? Yeah, I get I'm supposed to listen to love, not fear, blah, 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 but how, right? And so I've used a technique for years personally. It has saved my life. I came up with it. It is literally, I use it almost daily. It saved my life. I've taught it in every workshop and every client. I've taught thousands of people this. So I finally made a video on it, just a really short, fun video that walks you through it. And what it is, it's my best tool for undoing fear and trusting yourself. So if you're having fear of any kind or discouragement or pain or whatever, don't stay there. In fact, I encourage you to go use this now because what it will do is it will tap you into this other voice in you, this strength, this love, and help you build a relationship that's amazing. So the link is tamakieves.com, TAMAKIEVES.com /best dash tool. Tamakieves.com /best dash tool. It's free. And just and it's really a cool. I've had so many people use it that just say it like walks you through it and it just gives you the prompts and it's just I want you to start creating this relationship with this divine intelligence within you. Just another tool for your tool bag. Also, you can get my digital fortune cookies that come with it. So like once a week that comes an inspiring message if you want it. Of just I'm really big on forever reminding people of this divine intelligence, of this original path, because you get thrown off by the world. But I really encourage you stay connected to the people who connect to you. It's one of the reasons I've created this community. Like again, I hope you join me on social media every day. But hopefully you'll get the best tool. You'll get connected that way. I think you should support this podcast because they're doing amazing, amazing work. Anybody that supports you, anybody that is telling you messages that uplift you in some ways, follow that. Pay attention to that. Start tuning out the other things. Put your money, your time, your investment in the things that are feeding your soul. And that's how we gather together and that's how we strengthen. So I hope you get the best tool and I hope you use it and I want to hear how it goes.
I love that. Thank you so much. We'll put the link to that in the show notes and on our social media pages. But again, it's tamakieves.com/best/tools.
Oh,
So
actually, not. It's not best slash. It's best dash.
best dash tools,
Yeah, I
sorry.
know. Best hyphen tool. Yeah,
Best
I know.
hyphen
Yes,
tools.
yes.
So we'll put that proper link in the show notes so you can get that. And the book is called Learning to Trust Yourself. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate you.
I'm so honored to be here, and thank you for your work and what you are doing in the community you're creating. It's so, so important right now. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. It's been a pleasure.
It really has. And everyone, we hope you have a great week. Please remember, as always, to show up, do great work, and share your light.